As they say, we are coming to a close of the collegiate regular football season. We got a few championship games ahead of us, a few rival games. I know the BCS or FCS or the BCS conferences are winding down. The rankings came out. It is what it is. You were either in the top five or you weren't. Five is going to shift at least two more times. But as we ball, FCS Division 1AA, the NESCAC, this is that where championships are either made or not. You either did it or you didn't. And so, yeah, man, congratulations to everyone who's made it through a season. Football season is never easy, emotionally especially, and physically to add on to, which I think is common knowledge that it will be physically taxing. But what people do not realize is the emotional fatigue with football in a football season. Listen, if for every football player out there, for every coach who's out there checking in, look, there are no moral victories, but there are victories of self. And so for every coach that if you're not in November playing for a championship, everyone doesn't. That is the reality of competition in football. But this is the time where you can win, lose, or draw. Pour into your guys and thank them for battling. Thank them for going on that field of competition and playing through injuries, playing through flunking tests or failed exams or missed papers. Look, playing collegiate football is not easy. I know it's a cliche. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And everyone does not play college football. So, all right, we'll jump right in and talk about the CAA. Okay. This is the weekend where we can have either an outright number one or a 4 to 3-way tie at number one. And so here we go. All right. William & Mary is 5-1. Richmond is 5-1. Right? New Hampshire's 5-1. These are all your 5-1 teams. Okay. And so you understand all of these 5-1 teams can end up either one team or two teams can end up with two number one spots or two number two spots or two number ones or four number ones. That's how it's going to fall in an odd number. I don't know why, or if I do, I'm not really thinking about taking you through all of that. All right, so we talked about it. William & Mary, 5-1, they play Villanova. Villanova right now is not really competing for a playoff spot at 3-3, but this is the example that I'm speaking to. Coach Fron over there will probably love on his guys this week, encourage them, be thankful for all of what they have done, make the corrections that you can make for your seniors so that they can at least go out and say their last game was a W. Conversely, you have, and Villanova is not weak. And Villanova has to travel to William & Mary, Bill & Mary. So it will be one of those games where you're like, oh, did William & Mary just give it up to a Villanova? It's happened. And it's happened more times than you would know in the CAA. So William & Mary is on upset alert. It's Thorough Thursday. I'm just taking you through the CAA schedule thoroughly, okay? All right, Let's keep rolling. Richmond is also 5-1. Okay. Now, Richmond, who, by the way, gave UNH, the University of New Hampshire, their first loss last week. So now you have Richmond, who has to play Delaware. Now, for those who don't know, Delaware is fighting for their playoff spot. Okay. Now, I shouldn't say they're not technically fighting for a playoff spot directly, but indirectly at 4-2 they are. So if they can beat Richmond, Richmond has to go to Delaware. If Delaware beats Richmond, now Richmond has 2 losses. Delaware has 2 losses. Okay. If William and Mary loses, they'll have 2 losses. Okay. I hope you're still tracking with me here. This is CAA closure. Okay. Let's keep rolling. Everyone with me on that. So I'm saying, even though Richmond sitting at a tie at number 1 at 5-1, they beat UNH, but now Delaware, who's fighting for a playoff spot, they have to beat Richmond to make Richmond a 2-loss conference team. Still with me? 3 losses, you're out. That's the point. You get 3 losses in the CAA, you're out. If you can have 2 losses, now you're looking at tiebreakers, or you're looking at automatic, or you're looking at a voting bid now to get in. Hope you're still tracking. All right, here we go. All right, so now we talked about Richmond, we talked about William and Mary, now UNH. UNH with 1 loss. With 1 loss, and they took their first loss to Richmond last week. Now they have to go play a 2-loss team, or they have to play a 2-loss team, University of Rhode Island, who is going to UNH. So now, if Rhode Island, who's a quality team, right? Shout out Coach Patterson, my man Hot Wheels down there. Quality team, good offense, good running backs, solid up front, more than solid up front, solid at the receiver position. On any given moment, they can be above average at the quarterback position. And they're going to have to be all of that and more playing the UNH Wildcats, who, for whatever it's worth, is dynamic on special teams, electric on offense, and like stifling defense. So Rhode Island will have their hands full on every level and every facet of the game. But if Rhode Island pulls it off and beats a UNH, now you have Rhode Island with 2 losses, UNH with 2 losses. Delaware, suppose Delaware beats Richmond. Delaware with 2 losses, Richmond with 2 losses. Here's another kicker. I'm really going to cook your noodle now, okay? Let's say William and Mary loses to Villanova. That's 5 teams with 2 losses. Now, here's the other team who has 2 losses as well. Elon right now they cannot affect the domino by way of the 1 loss or the 2 loss, because they have 2 loss and they're playing Hampton. So for them, they have to take care of business, beat Hampton, which Hampton has been very competitive in their first year in the CAA. They have to beat Hampton. And if they beat, or when they beat Hampton, they need all of the other dominoes to fall. And so now they will have Rhode Island with 2 losses, Delaware with 2 losses, Elon with 2 losses, New Hampshire with 2 losses, William and Mary with 2 losses, and Richmond with 2 losses. That's 6 teams with 2 losses. I don't know if you know, but this is CAA football at its best. Since I've coached in the CAA, played in the CAA, played in Atlantic 10, and probably all my old heads, the Yankee Conference guys. This is what it is. So now, how they divide up and break the ties, the winning percentages. That's where politics come into play. And unfortunately, we don't do politics here because I'm no politician. So CAA athletes and coaches, good luck. This is what you play. This is what you play in November for. You play in November so you can go chase that gold championship in December. Because we don't do no bowling. We do chips. You either got the chip or you didn't. And that's what we do. And that's how they do. And that's where the CAA is. Now, where they get matched up, we'll talk about that in the playoffs. But this will be interesting. I'm gonna go watch the UNH URI game. I got two coaches that I've coached, hired, played with. I got a lot of connections on both staffs that'll be interesting to see. Hope the weather is nice, and I know the action will be more than what you can anticipate, because everybody playoff hopes and aspirations are on the line this week in the CAA. All right. Okay. So that's CAA football. Let's go and talk about the Patriot League. Ooh. Now, the Patriot League does not normally get the automatic bid to the playoffs. They get an automatic bid to the playoffs. Traditionally, it's been the winner of the league. They have not traditionally gotten more than one team in. Now, well, why are we talking about a team that only, or a conference that only gets one team in the playoffs? Because I think this year might be the exception where they take two teams. I think they should take two teams. The two teams I think they should take: Fordham, Holy Cross. Those are the two teams I think they should take. Partly because, let's see, how to put it. Fordham is doing national numbers, one. That's the first thing. Their only loss, unfortunately, was to Holy Cross in overtime 2 weeks ago. 52-53. How about that? Yeah, so in my assessment, do you take 3 CAA teams or 2 Patriot League teams? This year, you take 2 Patriot League teams, and however you figure out to not take as many CAA teams, that's what it is. Holy Cross and Fordham are averaging 42 to 45 points a game. The quarterbacks on both rosters are off the chart. The offensive line is off the chart. These two ball clubs are really, really good football clubs. Fordham's only loss outside of Holy Cross was to Ohio University, which by the way, they put 52 points up on them. They lost 52-59. Because this is a national playoff hunt, you got to let these two teams eat. You got to let them in. And they've already played, so unfortunately, it's not going to be. Now, here's what could happen. This is why we're talking about it. Because Holy Cross beat Buffalo, which went under the radar. They beat Buffalo, which is a 1A team, 37-31. Meanwhile, Buffalo waxed UMass this year. I'm not telling you UMass can't beat Holy Cross, but I'm telling you UMass don't want to play Holy Cross. Well, not right now. So, Fordham lost their 1A game. Holy Cross popped Buffalo 37-31. Pop Yale 38-14. Pop Harvard 30-21. I'm telling you, let these people in. Now, if for some reason, Holy Cross drops it to Bryant or Georgetown, it makes the conversation from Fordham a lot easier. And I also would tell you, now the argument for both Patriot League teams being in the playoffs with them both having 2 losses, it makes sense. It makes sense. And so that's what I'm thinking. That's how I'm thinking. Yeah. That's how I feel, people. That's the Patriot League. And the Patriot League is it's a scholarship football league, but you got some academic kids there, man. And so for them to go into playoffs, they're going into playoffs, and they got finals when they go into playoffs. And so kudos to all of the academic schools out there who are playing Division I football. It's not easy. It's just not. All right. Okay. All right. I do want to talk about the Ivy League, because the Ivy League has had some interesting events go on last week. Princeton is still undefeated, right? But though Princeton being undefeated, Penn is not undefeated. And I could not wait for that game for a lot of reasons. I've been forthcoming, like I'm a Penn alum from a coach standpoint. Yeah, man, I really had wished that they both could have gone undefeated into their game, but they still got 2 weeks left, and the Ivy does not participate in the playoffs. Now, whether you think that's weak or not, I'm okay with that as a coach. 10 in, 10 out. What you all about? Okay. Now, so what my point is on this is, if Penn can beat Harvard, okay, is at Penn. Traditionally, Penn does not have a whole lot of problems with Harvard, but can Yale at Princeton to make the Penn-Princeton game more dynamic, with both having 1 losses and saying, hey, this is an outright win for the league. 2 reasons why it could be an outright win for the league. Because everyone has more than 1 loss outside of Penn. And that right there puts you in a situation. I mean, Yale. And so Yale you can find yourself in a 3-way tie. Yale needs to beat Princeton, and then they have to beat Harvard at the last game of the year. And assuming that Penn beats Princeton and Penn beats Harvard, either way, we're looking at a 2-way tie at the end, if Princeton does not stay undefeated. They drop it, you're looking at a 2-way tie. They don't drop it, they got it outright. It is what it is. But I just want to be clear on shared championships. It's still a championship. No matter how many times you told me, hey, yeah, we won it that year too. Okay, good for you. Good for you. We won it. You won it. And subsequently enough, whether we wanted to beat you or you wanted to beat us, I'm not even going to be Petty LaBelle and talk about, yeah, we tied, but we beat you. I'm not even going to be that guy, because it's petty. Look, hats off. You got it done. I got it done. And that should be that, Jack. All right. So we talked about the CAA. We talked about the Ivy League. We talked about the Patriot League. We also talked about, we have not talked about, but we're going to talk about the Northeast Conference, NEC. All right, the NEC, man. Sacred Heart, who was on a roll. Now, the NEC has 2 more weeks to close out, but with Sacred Heart taking a tough L to St. Francis, who at the time were the only 2 undefeated teams in the league, along with Merrimack. Yeah. So now Sacred Heart is out and St. Francis is up along with Merrimack. They are both undefeated. St. Francis is student body right, student body left, and Merrimack is trying to air it out like Top Gun. Call them Maverick, because that's what they're trying to do. This is going to be a very, very interesting game because the matchups, like Merrimack's going to go fast, but we're going too fast, put them in a position where if they don't keep drives alive, they'll be in and out before halftime. Because St. Francis is going to sit on this ball like a golden egg. And that's not a bad thing. To each its own in styles of play. I'm not trying to critique the style in which you're making your bread off of. Like, no, bro, go make your bread and butter it. So this is going to be a really good game considering. And Merrimack is coming up from a Division II conference. Yeah, the Northeast 10. And they just jumped up in the Northeast Conference with that. So yeah, man. And here's the worst part about it for St. Francis. They're coming all the way out of PA. I want to say Schenectady, but no, it's not Schenectady. It's they up there, out there. At least to get to North Andover, Mass, you're talking easy an 8.5 hour drive. Hard 8. And so can St. Francis University come all the way out to Massachusetts and get a W? And if they get a W, here's the thing, they get a W, they clinch. They clinch if they can get a W off of, well, obviously because it's the last game of the year. But they beat Merrimack in the last game of the year. I think they're gonna be something to deal with in the playoffs because it's like they play great defense and they hold the ball and they run the ball. But before they get to all of that, they got to beat Central Connecticut. Sacred Heart has Wagner. Wagner is trying to get their third win of the year. Yeah, but the games that are playoff, that have playoff implications, right? If Merrimack loses to Central Connecticut, that will if Merrimack loses to Central Connecticut, I think that might clinch St. Francis or put St. Francis in a must-win to own the NEC conference title. So, and they do have a FCS playoff spot as well. All right. Last team. This is the lunch hour. I can't go an hour because I got daddy daycare responsibilities. So it's like 45 minutes. It's not even that. I don't even, because I already know what we're doing. Is I gotta be out of here to go pick up my kids from school. All right. Okay, yeah. NESCAC, last football league that I coached in, Division III academic league. They play 9 weeks. This is their final week. And the Trinity Roosters have done it again. Albert, I will tell you this team. Oh my goodness, bro. Like, unfortunately, not unfortunately or whatever. Look, they 8-0. Like Trinity, first off, they got good players. So you got good players, you got a shot. Second part, they got good coaches. You got good players and good coaches. You got a really good shot. Third, they got good players, good coaches, and a good administration. With good players, good coaches, and a good administration, You're almost impossible to beat. But they can be beat. And the team that has traditionally been able to get them, they just haven't been able to get them this year. Amherst has gotten them over the years. Middlebury has gotten them over the years. I have never gotten them. I haven't gotten close to getting them. If it's only a few teams in Coach Hall's history that I can say, ooh, if I could get another crack at them. And I'm not telling you the extra crack I have at them is still gonna get me a W. Trinity, they're one of those teams for me. But here's what I'll say. They have to play an in-state game right across the bridge, travel up Route 9 or the Merritt Parkway to stay on 15 to get to them. Travel right on into Hartford, Wesleyan versus Trinity. Both coaches I got an appreciation for. Where's the edge? Woo. This is a tough one for a lot of reasons because Wesleyan has been close and they just haven't been able to capitalize on it all the way. But they have been very, very close in my few years in the league. And so as they kind of finish this out, I don't know, guys. I'm going to go on a limb and say they could very well beat Trinity, but Trinity got players that probably could play at Harvard in the Ivy League. Hands down. If they don't have kids that can play at major scholarship football, I would argue they have a few of those kids. So the coaching staff does a great job, period. Now, Wesleyan can play upset and make this a tie, but I think the tiebreaker will go to Middlebury because Trinity beat Middlebury and Trinity sitting at one loss. Middlebury sitting at one loss. If Wesleyan beats Trinity, it does not give Wesleyan a piece of the title, unfortunately, because they're sitting at 2 losses. But it does put them at 7-2. And if Middlebury loses, it puts Middlebury at 7-2. Again, giving the Rooster the outright championship. So, yeah, man, look, if you're Trinity, you got to say, look, we've done everything that we've done to get to this moment. Let's finish the deal. Finishing the deal is very difficult because not of your opponent, not of anything other than self. Finishing is the most difficult thing to do because of fatigue, because of injury, because of emotions. And on top of, these kids have a social life. They have an academic expectation that is not super exceeding to football. Football does not super exceed any of the following. And so the challenge at the end is that everything is heightened on the football field just as it is off the field. And for Trinity to be 8-0, they've been able to handle the challenges on the field just as well as the challenges off the field. Because when you get on the field, those off the field challenges show up. They show up emotionally. They show up mentally. Sometimes they can show up even physically. And so if you are in this last week, as you spit shine your game plan today, I encourage you to encourage them by saying thank you. You balled out this year, though our record may not reflect it. You balled out. You made it. You did a 9-week, 12-week, 13-week season, and you made it to the end of the line. made it to the finish line. So let's run through this finish line with a great effort, great attitude, with the idea we left everything that God gave us onto that field. And so if this is your last game as a senior, you can walk away and say, hey, I left it all out there, and it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. This is Catch Up with Coach. You are officially caught up. Until next time, peace.